Like it or not, this is Greg Palast. I'm here with Jello Biafra, and this is our vidcast done Zoom style. We are less than 6 feet from each other emotionally, but otherwise socially distanced.
Oh yeah.
And for those of you, I'm gonna. So Jello Biafra is a famous accountant who came up with the theory of triple bookkeeping, and said, how you heard of double-sided bookkeeping? His is triple-sided. In fact, he came up with the first, and then he switched to music. That's when it really was very valuable, because he had the first three-sided record.
I think you're mixing it up with the four-sided bookkeeping. I think they call it a pyramid scam.
I thought, stop talking about the Republicans. All right. Go ahead. Anyway, so here we are. And if you don't know me, my name is Greg Palast. You can tell from the hat I'm an investigative reporter. And I have a book out, How Trump Stole 2020. I would show it to you, but I'm not. Wait. And this is our dyslexic version.
I can see it perfectly well. Yeah,
you can see it perfectly well, because usually these are in reverse on these Zoom things.
Yeah, it's got a Ted Rawl illustration on the cover.
And yes, there's a comic book inside for those of you who are victims of No Child's Behind Left education in America. We have a comic book, so you don't actually have to read the book. You can just look at the Ted Rawl comics.
Twitter attention span.
Yes, and there's lots of cool ass pictures.
That's cool.
Back to actually, guy. This is Jello's backup bass player, Hans von Spakovsky. Now I know he looks a lot like Dr. Mengele.
Your mic is breaking up there.
Oh, he's a little bit like. I know he looks a little bit like Dr. Mengele, but that's. That's his hero, not his dad. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so honored to be on your podcast, and that you would actually put on a tie just to talk to me. I don't see that very often from anybody. So I guess now, in order to get in proper uniform, what do we do? There we are.
That's where my hat went. That's where
your hat went. Or should we have the black one and make it more sinister there?
And where's the tie?
Yeah, no, you're not gonna get a tie out of me. Just a hat, or there's always
like it. I got it from Robin Williams.
I mean, it is election year, so there's always this too. But people might think I'm Cam Newton now. I don't know.
WC.
You like that one?
No, you look like Rand Paul.
No, I don't think W.C. Fields died a while ago.
And we're dying now, so.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm liking this one.
Okay.
I'm gonna be Cam Newton tonight instead of Greg Palast. No, I guess I'm gonna be Greg Palast. There we go.
Got the hat. All right.
Or I'm gonna be Frank Sinatra. There we go. Start spreading the news. Greg's drinking some booze. No, it's actually water, it appears. Or is it vodka?
This is just bubbles.
Tiny bubbles.
I never drink after 7 a.m. My wife can tell.
There you go. All right. So how Trump stole the election in 2020, since this is going out to my people as an Alternative Tentacles bATcast as well, with not one but two Alternative Tentacles recording artists yakking away at each other, along with a third one where there's Winston Smith behind you and Winston Smith behind me, and but no Winston Smith in the room because of social distancing. Social distancing is, a lot of it is kind of like, as Buzz from the Melvins put in a text to me, isn't this kind of like the way we live anyway when we're home?
After you're 40, how many people, where do you go, right?
Well, where do I go is, it is really kind of getting to me that I haven't seen Winston or been to Grant's tomb, his basement hive, and since this whole thing started, and I've only really seen in person about half a dozen people. Anne Marie, my girlfriend, and I had to quarantine from each other for about 17 days at one point too. Whoa. So And I can't go back to Colorado and Boulder, where I grew up in, where my mom still has the house, just like 10 minutes walk from where the Rocky Mountains begin. But I can't, I'd love to be there now, but I can't because she's banned me from the house.
Well,
She's a healthy 91-year-old who hates Trump more than anyone else I know, including you. But she also banned me from the house because she doesn't want me COVID up on the plane and giving it to her. I think she's right.
This is a little bit dark in a way, but my mother would have loved it. My mother passed away while she was wearing her impeach Trump t-shirt.
Oh.
97. She made a point of it, by the way. I'm not kidding you.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. And
Greg recently lost his 97-year-old mother, who made a point of passing away wearing an impeach Trump t-shirt. So in other words, you're not rebelling against conservative parents who thought Nixon was cool and all that? I guess not.
No. Yeah, I tried thinking Nixon was cool, but you know.
So in that case, when did you first become a news hound? And did your parents have anything to do with it?
No, because my mother wanted me to be a dentist. I kid you not. Because you have to understand, I grew up in the anus of Los Angeles. It's called Sun Valley. It was called Sun Valley because it's like the shithole of the city. It's and literally, when I say it's the shithole of the city, I don't want people to misunderstand. It is where the sewage plant is. So I grew up literally between the sewage plant, the garbage duct, and the power plant, which burned coal at that time. I still have bad lungs from it. And so I wanted to know.
I grew up right near Rocky Flats.
Oh, no wonder.
A few key miles away, but if that fire in the buildings, when I was in 5th grade, it hit one more building, it was where the plutonium triggers for the bombs that they'd finished manufacturing were stored. There might not have been an explosion, but there would have been enough plutonium dust in the air floating around that I'm not sure I'd be here, and I'm not sure even Sun Valley would be there long term.
Of course, he might still be here and a lot taller, but who knows? But yeah. So I grew up in the anus of Los Angeles, and I wanted to know who dumped us there, and who was responsible. And so that's when I began my investigative work. But I didn't become an investigative reporter. Actually, I became an investigator for the Justice Department, for attorneys general.
So you have a law degree.
Well, no, I went to law school where, Obama taught constitutional law at the University of Chicago. But I was actually the protege of this dwarf fascist named Milton Friedman. He was my.
Oh my God!
I kid you not. But what you don't know is that while I was working for under Milton Friedman, I was also working with the Communist Party labor union leaders of Chicago. And reporting back what this guy was doing. I said, don't take this guy serious. He's going to believe this self-serving bullshit that greed is wonderful. And boy, did I miss it. Yeah. I didn't realize that he was actually, writing the platform for the Democratic Party.
Friedman was writing the Democrats' platform.
Well, of course. I mean, it was technically, he thought he was writing the Reagan platform, but then Bill Clinton came along and said, hey, that's pretty good. I can shoplift that. And
exactly.
Feel our pain that he inflicts.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we've been handed one flavor of Reagan after another ever since. And this coup that it's being openly discussed that Trump is getting ready to pull. I just think it's more like I sensed an ongoing corporate coup, at least since Reagan. Think of it like a tank, slowly advancing, crushing democracy, freedom, and everything we like about being alive in its process, very slowly, because you couldn't have an outright coup in America because the Americans would rebel and they're well armed. So you got to do it slowly. So people don't realize what it is, but they kind of embrace it and kind of like it. Morning in America, and on down the line. And if it didn't start with Reagan, it sure as hell started with Carter, who was a much better ex-president than a president. But thinking back, and I've been doing so many interviews for this new album, this is like 2 days old, it finally clicked, no, wait a minute. Come on, dude, Nixon. Who until maybe 2 or 3 days ago, I still considered the most divisive president in my lifetime. Trump is so divisive, and even George W. was so divisive. You didn't live through Nixon. And still, people are not being drafted and sent off to fight in a war that nobody supported, that realized what it was even for or anything. And even back then, they weren't called militias, they were called hard hats. But yeah, anti-war protesters got hit in the head with axe handles some places by so-called blue-collar people who didn't like people going after Nixon. But as far as the news hound thing went with me, no, my parents didn't want me to be a dentist. My mother at one point thought I should go into advertising, which I took to heart, but then I've tried to sell insurrection with those skills ever since. But I have had a knack for slogans and memorable things like calling a band Dead Kennedys, or calling a Guantanamo School of Medicine album White People and the Damage Done. And the new one is called Tea Party Revenge Porn. And then the first album, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables by Dead Kennedys, we were working with a label then called Cherry Red over in England. I said, okay, use this as the ad slogan. Your worst fears are confirmed. And they thought that was great. They thought, my God, where's this guy come up with these things? But very early on, age 5, 6, whatnot, we finally had a TV and stuff. I would watch a cartoon show or two before dinner if I wasn't out playing or something. And then the 6 o'clock news would come on. I can't remember whether it was local or national first, but I watched both of them with equal fascination. And I'm told my favorite cartoon characters were Bullwinkle and Senator Everett Dirksen. But what this also meant was I saw Oswald get shot live in our living room, and all the replays and Kennedy assassination and everything else, and then saw the Berlin Wall go up.
You thought that was a real film, huh?
Yeah, well, black and white video. And seeing, I think it was actually quite possibly the police riot against the civil rights marchers with John Lewis and all trying to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge because the dogs going after him, the hoses and whatnot. I remember seeing that. And then my mother saying, I can't understand why anybody would be so mean to somebody just because of the color of their skin. And that, rather than lecturing Eric, you should not be a racist, that was much more effective, because from that point onward, I was hardcore anti-racist. I just could not understand that. And, you know, Vietnam, all the bloody soldiers that would come in, they won't show you now because the networks were independently owned and were trying to outscoop each other with their news departments. They didn't care if that.
Do you realize that
money.
Today...
So but the other important part of that was that I realized later, why do I remember this stuff so much more vividly than even people I grew up with? We were talking about this at the time. 4th grade, the 68 election was coming up. Everybody knew who was for and against the war and stuff like that. There were even Rockefeller buttons for some people at one point. So people were engaged. And why didn't this stuff stick? People my age not even remembering Watergate when those Senate hearings that summer with Senator Sam Ervin and, country lawyers, you know that. That was the best reality show in the history of television. Most people my age I've talked to about it, they don't remember it at all. Why do I remember it? Well, I was interested for one thing, but why was I so interested? Well, it's because I think most of these people's parents either never let the news come on when their kids were around because it might upset them, or it's still, you're not old enough to know that. Where in my household, they left it on, and things like dogs attacking civil rights protesters, it was discussed with the children. It was all one big teaching moment. And I learned pretty fast that the police were not my friend and that the Vietnam War was wrong. And growing up in Boulder, Colorado, there was a lot of anti-war activity, maybe as many as 20,000 hippies that swarmed into town back when people were scared of hippies. So my hair started getting longer and things like that. So, and also around age 7, Dad blundered into a rock and roll station. He was trying to get me to go to sleep one night, and I was hooked from that point onward. So I'm so grateful in retrospect, I actually got to feel and experience the 60s and everything as involved as a kid could be growing up in that, and the music at the same time, and how it all cross-pollinated and rocked and everything. So, oh, come on. Let me get this off the screen. There we go. I don't need it. This meeting has been upgraded, blah, blah, blah. Well, great. Anyway, so basically, you know, the news hound never left, and I was always a news hound. And so that's why I was curious whether you had parents like that too, who brought the news so vividly into your own life when you were 5, 6 years old and made sure you understood what was going on in the world.
Yeah, but that was when there was actually news. There isn't now. There's chit chat. We're all the newspapers are following Trump's thumbs, you know. So the Twittiot in chief is actually determining what the news is. He says, "Oh, I'm not going to leave office."
Oh, I know, but there's all kinds of cooperation on the other end.
Yeah,
I mean, you've documented it, and Ben Bigdickian with the Media Monopoly books of Denom documented how his corporations swallow the networks and other things and merge down to what, 5 or 6 still corporations, only practically all the major media. And of course they're going to dumb it down. It makes them more money. Of course they're not going to have all the foreign news bureaus because that costs money. And why should we be telling people what's going on in other countries when it's cheaper and more effective for control of the peasants to have all Trump all the time? Or occasionally, oh, maybe a fire, maybe a riot, but we'll cut to the same panel of experts, so-called experts on retainer, some of whom, even the dudes, probably came from modeling agencies and stuff, even though they don't look quite as good in a sleeveless dress as the blondes they have on all those networks, substituting, if you look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you're not getting on the air. It's not good TV. It's not eye candy. We want talking eye candy. And that's what's okay. That's what that's the story for today, and the only story for today. There's a great early cartoon by Tom Tomorrow, the best editorial cartoonist alive at this point, and very early one for corporate cartoon McNews. Here's Action McNews. Here's a picture of the president. Next frame. Looks like something's happening in some other country. And there it is. That's all the news you need to know for the day. Poof. Well, but he was right.
And you don't see any, it's chit chats. You don't see like the produced pieces. Like when I was working for BBC television, you know, I had a story, an investigation of this American billionaire, Paul the Vulture Singer. And I flew, and some other these characters.
And he's right? Still doing damage.
Well, now now he has Agent Orange in his jockstrap. So I said, look, I got to fly to Bosnia. I got to fly to the Congo, New York, London. I said, okay. No one's going to spend that money anymore. Because they could get cheap news just by saying, oh my God, what do you think of Trump saying he's not going to leave office? Oh, I think that's a bad idea. And so, but why go and get the news? Okay, so I just finished, just as we're talking, I did a 7-minute report on the upcoming theft of Wisconsin, which could steal the election for and I did we went to Wisconsin, we did all this work. And, you know, I can't get networks to touch it. First of all, it's 7 minutes long. 7 minutes of news at one time? I mean, well, maybe 70 seconds we can fit in, possibly, as long as you don't, you know, like show icky stuff like black people. You know, if you're a black person, it's got to be a celebrity, a basketball player, you know.
On that pace, get a, what's her name, Caleb, or whatever she is, McElhaney, wig, put it on Bad Penny, claim it's her story, and then see if they'll broadcast that instead.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. But I'm not kidding. I mean, it's really hard. Watch the news. There is no.
Oh, better still. Maybe at least get on Comedy Central or one of those shows. Present it as a cooking show. Well, and there is Chef Palast, and you've got, you know, you're breaking eggs. Here's Wisconsin fry. Here's what's left of your voting in Georgia fry. And here at the end is something so disgusting, none of you are even going to want to eat it. So don't vote, because otherwise some clown with a gun in a pickup truck is going to blow you away anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, actually, one of the tricks that we were going to have, these are all great ideas for Undercover. I was trying to get this scumbag named Dr. Herman. That was for BBC television. Again, we did undercover stakeouts. You know that no American TV will ever stake out a bad guy. I mean, that takes time. I mean, you're on the clock and you're sitting in your car, right? So We did
and also they can just get camera phone stuff for free.
Yeah. So then, yeah, exactly. In fact, the only reason you know about police brutality is not because of the newscasters, but because of citizen casters. They can't.
Of course. Many people from Will Smith on down have said it's not as though these kind of police lynchings, as many of them are saying of innocent protesters and people pulled over in their cars, has suddenly increased. It's just that now it's finally being documented.
Yes, exactly.
Whoever shot the Rodney King video is lucky they're still alive.
Right.
And whatever patriotic prankster actually let their camera phone record Mitt Romney saying there's 47% of the people in this country who are freeloaders, and Romney actually said they think they're entitled to health care, they think they're entitled to food. People think Mitt Romney's this kind of moderate, but he's the dude who wanted Paul Ryan to be his vice president. That guy is an extremist disguised as a moderate who looks kind of like your ex-husband or the IRS agent auditing you, or the fall guy in a Leave It to Beaver type show or something like that. But Romney's a vicious dude, and this guy documented that.
By the way,
right about the time.
I got to interrupt you for a Romney story, and this just tells you the difficulty.
But I didn't finish my Romney story.
Who wants a Romney story? Because he just said that he's going to vote for Supreme Court justice. This guy will just, originally,
no matter who it is.
Oh, he's a stand-up guy, voted one article of impeachment or something. Fat chance. So he's but one thing that hasn't come out in the press, I had a cover story in Nation just before the 2012 election saying Mitt Romney had secretly pocketed over $100 million. It didn't come from Bain, his little company. He didn't do nothing there. He didn't make any money. It came $100 million from Paul the Vulture Singer, which was given to him secretly through his wife's supposed secret trust fund. I charted the whole damn thing. $100 million, which he pocketed off the auto bailout. Okay. Obama himself brought it up. His secretary caught up. David Axelrod, his campaign manager, was trying to say, read this article by Palast. And first of all, you can't get any papers unless the AP covers it. If it's not an AP, it's not a story. So then the UAW called the AP and said, this is a huge story. Romney pocketed $100 million. And the AP guy said, for the first time in my 30-year career at AP, I was called by Washington and said, don't touch this story. So no one would touch the story. And that's the truth. And that was so investigative reporting, you get punished for it. I mean, I just had CNN call me, and CNN called me and told me that the Secretary of State of Georgia, the Purgeon General, the guy who I just issued a report for the ACLU. I'm sorry, this isn't very funny, but you can make up some ACLU humor, I'm sure. ACLU released my report that 198,351 people were illegally removed from the voter rolls of Georgia. They were criminals. They shouldn't be allowed to vote. Their crime was voting while black. And including, by the way, I was there when Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin was thrown out on her keister from a polling station because they said she had moved. I went to the house they said she moved from, right? So anyway, the Secretary of State basically admitted he'd lied. That is this GOP huckster, grifter.
Well, sadly, people have become
so what happened was,
numb.
But here's the thing.
To lying.
Well, CNN didn't report this son of a bitch lied. Instead, they told me that he had lied and he admitted it. And then he said, but he made a mistake. And then he told another lie. I said, the mistake is that he told you and you told Greg Palast. That's the mistake because I reported it. CNN panicked and said, retract it. It said, wait, is it a truth? Wait, did you tell me the truth? Yeah. So he lied. You told the truth and you want me to retract the true statement. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll retract it and then I'll just take screenshots of your text messages to me. But then that means CNN will never have me on again. Not that they rarely have me on now, right? I remember when I was.
I've never seen you on CNN.
On NPR's Media Matters, I was a regular, and then talking about the failures of the American media. This is when the old.
Did Velshi have you on last weekend or not?
So no. So what happened was, are you ready for this? So the Media Matters said, do you have stories can you give us some stories of media that botched the story? And I said, yeah, NPR. They took, there was a congresswoman, Cynthia McKinney, and they try to say that she's a nutcase because she's left-wing, Democratic Party. Everyone went after her. What happened was that she had uncovered she took a story I wrote about how a gold mining company named Barrick Gold,
Right.
this gold mining company had literally they bought a company, they cleared the property by burying alive 50 miners in Africa. They buried them alive, and that's how they got the property. And I wrote that story for The Guardian, and George Bush, it was George Bush Sr.'s company, and he sued me in Britain, terrible libel laws, right?
Right,
and,
right.
So Cynthia McKinney decided to hold hearings on Barrick Gold mining. And so then the Democratic Party went completely nuts because they had people like Vernon Jordan on the board. So they had the Democratic Party establishment was taking millions from this company to cover it up and to cover up the killings. And Cynthia McKinney didn't want to cover up the killing. She also said they were using they were making money on blood gold nuggets from the Congo. And then suddenly the Democratic Party pulled away from her. She's losing her primary. She's like, what's going on? And I said, well, you don't know. It's not just Bush's gold mining company. The Democratic Party leadership has taken money on this. She didn't know that. And so now they had to ruin her. So they took an interview.
Where is she
NPR,
now?
Who the hell knows? They got rid of her. NPR, National Petroleum Radio, took an interview she did and took a sentence from the beginning of the interview and a sentence 20 minutes later and bolted those two sentences together. NPR, to make it seem like she was completely insane and that, that Bush had personally masterminded the 9/11 attack or something. They literally took two sentences 20 minutes apart and made it seem like it was one sentence. So I said, that's like horrendous. So I wanted to report that. They came, believe it or not, they'd come to my house with microphones and everything to set up for the show. And then I said, so they said, what's you're going to talk about? I said, National Petroleum Radio fabricating a story. And NPR, and they said, wait a minute, we're just told we have to leave. Shut me down. I was never on the program again.
Well, I mean, you just have to keep finding ways to sneak stuff in that is going to actually be seen by people other than, people like us and stuff. I mean, as you're also saying, in 2018, if so many votes hadn't been stolen and cross-checked out and gerrymandered out and whatnot, Beto O'Rourke and Stacey Abrams and Gillum in Florida and even sorry old Senator Nelson and many more wouldn't have just won, but they would have won big.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the other really horrible things about the way Trump stole the 2016 election, which through your film and the book and whatnot pointed out it wasn't rigged for Trump. It was rigged long before for whoever the Republican nominee was going to be. They weren't planning on Trump-a-muck or anything, because down ballot, it did as much or more damage in some of these same states where Hillary Clinton should have won, but then the handful of 10,000 votes, the difference. That also was the difference in Senate elections. Governors, county commissioners, what have you, but several Tea Party crackpots who were not expected to get reelected because they were too stupid and too nuts, like Ron Johnson in Wisconsin and in North Carolina and Pat Toomey and others, they were all supposed to lose. And instead they quote unquote won just in time to keep Mitch McConnell in charge of the whole Senate and slip Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh and soon to be another one onto the Supreme Court, which on top of all the other things, it means once Barrett or one of the other ones gets on the Supreme Court, it now means 5 of the 9 justices shouldn't even be there. They're not even legitimate appointees. Roberts and Alito were appointed by George W. Bush in his second term when he stole the second election via Ohio and Florida. So those guys shouldn't be there. And of course, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh shouldn't be there. And now the next one shouldn't be there. And they all know it. They all know it.
Yeah, but they don't care it.
Well, they care it in the sense that
what do we care when Jello Biafra doesn't think we ought to be here? You know,
we're going to monkey even more with what's left of the Constitution and legislate from the bench. We complained that the Warren Court did, but not on the scale that the Roberts Court does. And who cares about the Constitution? We shouldn't even be here, and we got to make sure that people like us are the only ones who ever get here from now on. You know, the permanent majority that Tom DeLay and Karl Rove were bragging about in 2006 and stuff like that, they've kept their eye on that prize. I mean, Michael Moore pointed out years ago, the problem is we're busy, you know, we're going out enjoying the outdoors, we're having sex, we're having wonderful time culture, going out to eat, stuff like that. While these people bound out of bed every morning looking for new ways to screw the poor, and then they get right to work. That's what we're up against, not even counting all the damn guns.
Well, yeah, I know. Well,
so besides Wisconsin, whole book in advance, How Trump Stole the 2020 Election. At least it came out a little bit earlier than the Best Democracy Money Can Buy movie did.
You know, you got it exactly, because here's what's happening. I used to write these books. I wrote The Best Democracy Money Can Buy about how Bush W stole the election in 2000.
Right.
Then I wrote Armed Madhouse, which, taking back, it was kind of like from your ideas, taking the armed and dangerous clowns in the White House.
Well, also the financial motives of invading Iraq was a major part of that book,
and I wrote a book, but I wrote the book about the theft of the 2004 election after it was stolen. Then I wrote Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, and I did The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. I tried to get ahead of the game with the film, saying, here's how Trump's going to steal the election. No one believed me. No, because they all bought their party dress for Hillary's inaugural, and they didn't believe that he would steal it. Now, this time, I'm trying to do something.
You don't have them on, do you?
Boom! I'm trying to be. Is that subtle? I'm trying to be a little more subtle. How Trump stole 2020. I mean, I'm hitting you on the head with it, so that this time you get it.
Besides Wisconsin,
I'm trying to tell you beforehand how to do
it.
Oh,
I know. I know.
Let's go to Michigan. Okay, another swing state. First of all, you have to understand, in America, here's a deep, nasty little secret. We don't count all the votes, Jello. We don't count all the votes that are cast. In fact, we have
This is not news to me.
An agency. Well, okay. There's a page in the book. It has numbers. Don't be afraid, because it has numbers. But it has numbers from an official agency called the Elections Assistance Commission, which keeps track of our voting and non-voting. And according to the Elections Assistance Commission, in 16, 1,913,369 ballots, that's just shy of 2 million ballots, were cast and never counted. Trump won by 70,000 votes in 3 states. 1.9 million votes not cast. That's just the ballots that were cast and rejected. Then there's something called a provisional ballot, 925,973 rejected. That's almost a million. Let's round it up. Mail-in ballots. I know all you guys, I just heard from Michelle Obama. Mailing in your ballot is safe and easy, except it doesn't get counted. According to MIT, 22% of all mail-in ballots are thrown in the garbage. Half of those, by the way, you don't even get in time to vote. So you ask your mail-in ballot, you don't get it. Fooled you. Then the next one is you get your mail-in ballot, you send it in. They go, do you know that they eliminated 12,000 ballots in New York in a congressional primary? It changed the primary. The left wing was trying to unseat Carol Maloney. And she lost, but then she challenged 12,000 ballots. Actually, she challenged 24,000 ballots because they didn't have a postmark on it. Now, you ready for this? The state of New York sends you your mail-in ballot pre-stamped. Isn't that cool? They pay for the stamp. And the law says it must be postmarked by election day. No problem. It's pre-stamped, just postmarked by election day. You put it in the mailbox. Fooled ya, because the post office does not postmark pre-stamped mail. Unless you go into the post office and say, please postmark this envelope. Because why should they bother?
The ballots here are all business reply mail with all those stripes on the right.
But here's the thing. If you're in a state that requires a postmark, you don't get the postmark. And so in New York, people mailed in their ballots because the Democratic Party says it's safe and wonderful. Then the Democratic Party said, don't count any ballots that aren't postmarked, which is half of them. Because half of them simply, the post office said, we don't postmark ballots unless you request it.
Right.
So
well,
these are now that's the Democrats.
Oh, I know. I mean, nobody likes democracy less than the Democratic Party, except maybe the Trumpsies.
Right.
But, and just like the British Labour Party hates laborers, and the Liberal Party in Australia is about the least liberal party in Australia. You know, it goes on and on and on. But one thing I remember from when I saw the Best Democracy Money Can Buy movie down there in the Marina District.
Who made that movie? I want to write it down. I don't want to forget. What's the name of it?
You know that. Here I am being a shill. Yes, it's Greg Palast movie, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Even now, it's worth seeing.
I made that film. Go ahead. Tell me something wonderful about it.
Well, what I'm going to tell you is not necessarily wonderful, and that is some of the discussions I heard going on outside and in the lobby, and people talking to me about it too afterwards, like after seeing how completely stolen by the interstate cross-check program this election is going to be, if Greg Palast is right, this makes me all the more, solidifies my feeling that I shouldn't even vote at all. It's not going to matter.
You know what?
How do you answer that? How do we actually vote in this day and age and get counted?
There's four words that are crucial here. As Martin Luther King once said, don't be a putz. Vote. That's 5. Okay.
Visualizing Martin Luther King uttering the word putz is really difficult.
No, maybe not. Okay. But someone said it. I think it was my dad. Don't be a putz. So look, here's why you vote. And I hate to tell you something really dull and stupid, which is that they can't steal all the votes all the time. They haven't figured that one out yet. They have not figured out how to steal all the votes all the time. And, I
saw Karl Rove's meltdown in 2012 when the fix in Ohio didn't work because too many people voted overwhelmingly for Obama. I mean, as soon as NBC called it for Obama, I said, okay, I'm going to watch Fox and see what they do. And there was Karl Rove freaking out that all the arrangements they'd made to do what they did in 2004 and probably in 2008, but it didn't work.
Actually, I know something on the inside of that one that's in the book. Okay, How Trump Stole 2020. There's a chapter called Turd Blossom Freaks Out. Now, Turd Blossom is the name that George Bush gave Karl Rove, who is Bush's brain. So Bush thought his own brain was a turd blossom.
Well, they both liked fart jokes and spent a lot of time in the Oval Office making them. And it was almost better that Trump's time in the Oval Office was gorging cheeseburgers and watching himself on TV all that time. That gives him less time to actually start more wars or think through some of these evil plans and actually going through with them.
So what happened in 12, by the way, is that the Republican Secretary of State told the county elections officials at the last minute, black people vote on Souls to the Polls Sunday. Don't let them vote. How do you stop them from voting? Well, you trick them. You don't let them vote on the regular voting machines. You give them absentee ballots. So I went to the county clerk. I was in Dayton, Ohio. It was a 5-hour line. I'm saying, what's going on here? Why are these people waiting 5 hours in line and filling out an absentee ballot? They're not absent. They're right here in the county voting office. And he said, because an absentee ballot, a mail-in ballot, can be challenged. And so they figured that they were going to challenge. Obama won by about 200,000 votes in Ohio, that they figured they could challenge 300,000 or 400,000 votes. 70% of African Americans.
You're okay because your face is frozen and the audio's gone out.
My face is frozen and the audio's gone out. Wait, how's that? Is that better?
There you are.
Here I am. Here I was. So what happened? I just told you. What happened was that they wouldn't let black people on Souls to the Polls. They vote on regular machines. They had absentee ballots.
That part came through.
And they can throw out. They can just throw them out. So their idea was they're going to mass throw out the ballots after the election and declare Ohio for
there you go again. I hope other people are getting this. It's just my internet connection.
Is your internet connection crappy? Tell Bezos to cut it out. You know what? This is every time I mention Karl Rove, the net goes out. You explain it. Coincidence? I think not.
One of them words they flag.
Okay, so you know, that carnivore machine, Rove.
You really want to get rid of that, and that's one of the words. 200 million internet users at once should start putting Karl Rove in whatever communication they do, all at the same time.
Or just Turd Blossom, they'll get it.
Or ISIS.
So that's the trickery that, you know, that's the, so now, but they took that for a test drive in Ohio in 12. That didn't work. It worked in 4. So this is what they're going to do now. You got 80 million people who are stupid enough to mail in their ballot because they think all you have to do is pick and lick. You pick a president, you lick a stamp, you send it in. No. We had 100,000 people, more than 100,000 people lose their vote for postage due. And I just told you, 12,000 people in one single district in New York lost their vote because their ballots were not postmarked at all. Hey, remember guys, there's no stamp on there. There's no postmark. So you got to, if you want to vote by mail, you have to take it into the post office, get it postmarked. Now, unless you don't want it to count. You can also,
that's interesting.
141,000 signatures were challenged as fraudulent, which means we have a hell of a lot of forgers in America. They didn't arrest any. They just threw out their ballots. And whose ballots get thrown out? If you're Black, Hispanic, the chance your mail-in ballot will be thrown out is 300% higher.
Well, you have to be aware of that jet setter Jose Gonzalez, who, according to Chris Kobach and Crosscheck, was voting dozens of times in 29 states at once. And it must all be the same person, right?
Right. So what happens is they had a program where they're eliminating double voters. I have a chapter in How Trump Stole 2020 called 568 James Browns voted twice. You know, so it's like, so James Brown voted 568 times. It's true. They literally removed 568 guys from the voter rolls of Georgia because their name is James Brown, and they found a James Brown in Motown and James Brown in Baltimore, and they said, obviously, these are all the same guy. I can't make this up. And by the way, it was James Thomas Brown was supposed to be the same guy as James Edward Brown. But that's,
right.
Hey, read the book. It has a happy ending. I have a condom.
You told me you were sending me one. I don't think it's arrived yet.
Well, I have to put the ballot condom on. There is at the back of the book, I'm not kidding, you get with How Trump Stole 2020, a ballot condom at the back of the book. No, you don't put it around your ballot or anything else, Jello. But you do read the 7 steps on how to save your stinking vote so they don't steal it from you. That's what you got to do. And it includes, by the way, this is, we're jerking around, but I want everyone listening to this. If you don't check your registration, you're a fool, because 16 million people have been removed from the voter rolls in the past 2 years, and you're probably one of them. I can tell you that
I voted in person last time, which I usually don't. And then
what? Because I'm a California voter, and I know you think California's voting system is just cool dudes and surfers, and they're chill and they count your ballot. I looked up, go online to vote.org. I looked myself up at the Secretary of State's website. Greg Palast, no such voter. So I re-registered right there online. So it doesn't matter. I mean, and I was just telling you how in Georgia, you had Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin who's going to vote for her 50th year at the same polling station. She was missing. She didn't check her, why should she be checking her registration after 50 years? The answer is because
Brian Kemp is in charge.
You're attempting to vote while Black, and you've got these cracker racists who are running the system, but they're the worst kind of racists because they're not the kind of racists that don't like Black people because of the color of their skin. They don't like Black people because of the color of their vote, which is blue. And that's what they're concerned about. That's the problem. And so, look, it's not that I think that the Democrats are wonderful. I'm telling you to vote for a Democrat or a Republican. I don't give it. Vote any damn way you want. But here's the thing. Make sure they don't take your vote. So check your registration. I know it sounds really good. Check my registration. That's not a very exciting, interesting, sexy, funny thing to say. I don't care.
Well, I admit my way of checking my registration has been just waiting for the absentee ballot to show up, and it always does. Although I was starting to get a little worried this year because it still isn't here. But at the same time, Trump is in legal tangle with the state of California trying to get rid of all the absentee ballots. Because Governor Newsom was saying he wanted them mailed to every person, every voter, whether they wanted one or not. And so on that basis, the Trumpsies are challenging the existence of absentee ballots at all, even though that's the way the Don votes too.
Well, but what he's saying is he's saying that unless you ask for it, right? So here's the deal. Here's the deal. These guys are ready. The Boogaloo boys are ready. Here's the scenario. 80 million people mail in their ballots. It takes, you do the calculation, how long it takes to go through a ballot. If someone's challenging the signature, someone's challenging the postmark, someone's challenging whether you filled in the bubble correctly. I know a voter who is so stupid that they lost their vote because they didn't properly fill in a bubble. That's my sister, is a lawyer, okay? She was in Clinton's cabinet.
That doesn't make them stupid. It just makes the other side diabolically clever to use that kind of thing as an excuse.
You got it. You've got it. Exactly. It's diabolical. Yeah, exactly. And it's sick, but that's how they win. You know that you had a Democrat elected mayor of San Diego, and they literally went through the absentee ballots until they found like my sister's bubble, my mother's bubble, and others where they said these mail-in ballots all have a mistake on them, out the window. And that was the end of the election, and they gave it back to the Republican. So go ahead, mail in your ballots, Democrats. Better idea. Coat it with Vaseline, insert it. More likely to get counted that way than by putting it in the mailbox. Okay, can I make it clear? Go ahead. Suicide by postage. That's what you're doing. Because here's what happens. They're going to challenge.
But again, for people who don't buy or have access to your book, how do people make sure their vote does get counted? Well, especially people out there who are in Georgia and North Carolina and Ohio and the rest.
Number one, if you live in Georgia, you live in Wisconsin, you go to gregpalast.com or you go to my special website, savemyvote2020.org, and I'll tell you if you've been kicked off the list and re-register. I have a link. Now, the second thing is go to gregpalast.com. Even if you don't want to buy the book, shame on you. If you don't want to buy How Trump Stole 2020, you're going to wait till he actually steals it, and then what's the point? But there is the ballot condom is there for downloading free at gregpalast.com, P-A-L-A-S-T. That's the name. That's where the ballot condom is. What can I tell you? And things like, so why? Well, what do I do? If I'm an old dude, right? I got one lung and a bad heart. I'm not kidding. And God's kidding.
It is an AFib, is it?
No, it's some schmuck doctor while working on my heart accidentally cut my right diaphragm. Shit happens. Okay, so what happened? So anyway, but I can't stand I can't stand in the get COVID line. What are you guys waiting here for? We're waiting to get COVID. So exactly. I can't stand 4 hours in a line with COVID. So, but I don't want to mail in my ballot and throw it away, have it thrown away by some schmuck in a boogaloo Hawaiian shirt who doesn't like my ballot and challenges it. So what do? It's called early voting. In America, almost every state has, forget election day. We have election month. In most states, you have like 2, 3, 4 weeks to vote in person. And you know what? No one's there. I've been at these voting stations on a Wednesday.
But you got to go down to City Hall to do that.
And there's literally 2 people that show up in an hour. It's safer than going to your bedroom.
But doesn't that give those people more time to monkey with and challenge your ballot?
No, because the worst is that when they don't count it afterwards, there's no way in the world that America is not set up to count 80 million mail-in ballots. In California, we've been doing almost entirely mail-in for years, and we are supposed to count ballots within 30 days. We never do. I don't know of an election in California where we ended up counting all the ballots in time. And that's 30 days. Now think about this. The election's November 3rd. You have the Electoral College December 14th. Now what? So you can't be counting the ballots on December 15th. In fact, most states require that you certify your vote and send the electors on November 30, 2 weeks before the Electoral College meets. Why? Because when they wrote the Constitution, they had to get people to the Capitol by horseback, right?
Well, it was also to preserve slavery, too.
Right. Well,
give the slave states that had less people more power than they would have otherwise.
Exactly. So, the Electoral College is basically a slave patrol. That's how it was set up, was to maintain slavery. It's that simple. There's no question about it. It's not a dispute. It's not like some revisionist history. That's what it was literally about. That the slave states bitched.
Yeah, I always worry about these fascist judges who follow down the Scalia line of I was about to say Mussolini line, but of original intent. What did the fathers originally intend when we're ruling on internet?
Not to vote. They intended for people.
Well, it was more than that. I mean, the only people who could vote were white male property owners.
Yeah, and when the public rebelled, Shays Rebellion, we killed a lot more Americans than we killed British, because we had to make sure that we eliminated those people who didn't like the idea of a permanent plutocracy. But hey,
I've never heard of this. How do you spell that?
SHAY''S, Shays Rebellion. And it was like
what year?
It was like the Kronstadt Rebellion. It was right after the founding of the Republic, and it was just like the Kronstadt Rebellion against Lenin and the Bolshevik overlords. These are the real communists these are the guys, the Kronstadt sailors, by the way. This is important. I can tell you some history, whether you liked it or not. The Kronstadt sailors were the guys, remember the battleship Potemkin? That was their battleship. They're the ones that overthrew the Tsar. Lenin was jerking around in Switzerland, okay? He wasn't around. The Bolsheviks weren't around. Trotsky was in New York. So it was the Kronstadt sailors and the people in the factories that overthrew the government. And then when the Bolsheviks came in and took over through a coup d'etat, when the actual revolutionaries complained, they decided to go and kill them. They killed hundreds of sailors who had risen up against the government to try to restore revolutionary power. And so there you go. So.
And that explains
it's like the Democratic Party.
Old British anarcho-punk band, Kronstadt Uprising.
There you go.
I never knew.
You never knew. You thought it was.
So in other words, what you're saying is, and that kind of dovetails with what I already knew, that the Russian Revolution was hijacked by the Bolsheviks well into the operation, not unlike a certain Ayatollah realizing that these students who took some hostages at the American embassy were going to let them go in a few days after they made their point. I could do more about this, and then I could get rid of Bonnie Sauter and the rest of them, and we could make it a theocratic dictatorship instead of a semi-democracy. Pounce.
You're confusing all the people that have slept through history. I'm not talking about history class. I'm talking about sleeping through history. Okay.
Well, I mean,
So here's what we got to do. Okay. We have to be prepared for the war. I'm telling you right now, November 4 starts the Civil War, because what's going to happen is,
I hope not.
Okay. The Democrats are going to mail in their ballots so that Trump's going to declare himself winner by a landslide on election night, because that's when all the ballots are being counted, and the exit polls will say, well, he's won, because the people who go to the polls are the COVIDophiles, known as the Republicans, and they're going to vote for Trump. And so he's going to declare himself victor, and he's going to say everything else after this is bullshit. So they're going to say, oh, Roger Stone's going to say, there are 100,000 ballots from Bolivia in the Tallahassee Central Post Office, burnt down. They're going to say in the Miami County, remember in 2000, Roger Stone led the Gucci riot, or the Brooks Brothers riot in in Miami-Dade, they stopped the count in 2000. That's how Bush became president of the United States, because they literally stopped the count through a riot. Now, that's nothing.
Well, there were others involved, like James Baker and
yeah. Well, look, I also showed,
and the rest.
And, I talk about in my book how they removed 58,000 black people as ex-cons. You can't vote. You couldn't vote in Florida if you were an ex-con. And exactly.
Oh, I know this. I know that one. Yeah, you can't vote because you were in 2000 because you were convicted of a felony in 2021.
Yes, in the future, like we showed people that the convictions were like in the future, and we literally had things like Billy Ray Johnson was lost her vote because a woman, Billy Ray Johnson, lost her vote because a guy named Billy Ray Johnson in Ohio was convicted of a felony. I'm not making up that example. They did whatever they could to tag black people as felons. And by the way, the Democratic Party and Al Gore would not stand up for those people.
Of course
they
not.
refused. And no, Gore not, right. And so what happened is, this is the kind of things that they did then. But now we're talking about major riots that will stop the count. So Florida will say, oh, there's too many fraudulent ballots. There's riots in the street. We started them, but hey, there's riots in the street. So the Republican legislature of Florida is going to say, we can't certify the election. Same in Ohio, same in Michigan, same in Wisconsin. The Republican legislatures, even though those are states that Biden can pretty safely say he's going to win. Maybe it's close in Florida, but and even Georgia, where I think Biden's going to win. The polls are showing him up in Georgia. And
I don't think those polls mean anything based on what else you're saying and all the votes that are tossed.
They're just going to say it's all fraudulent, so we're not going to certify. Now, no one gets 270 votes in the Electoral College. They only do one round. No one gets 270 votes because 4 states didn't show up. So what happens? It goes to the House of Representatives. And you say, oh, Pelosi picks our president. No. It's one state, one vote. California gets the same vote as South Dakota. And Puerto Rico gets, well, they don't get any votes. Screw them. Then you've got, but one state, one vote. And the Democratic Party has 23 delegations, Republican 26. And therefore, Trump is reelected constitutionally. And if you want to bitch about it, take it to the Supreme Court. Ha!
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time you heard a joke with a punchline, Supreme Court?
Oh, I'm sure I could come up with one somewhere.
Yeah. So
I'm surprised not that many people are calling them the Supreme Kangaroo Court, but give them time.
Well, I think they've just renamed themselves the White Citizens Council, but
right. So long term, you have a 6-3 majority of out and out neo-Nazis who just keep their white hood tucked in their vest pocket and hand down decision after decision, destroying environmental laws, voting rights laws, and making Citizens United look less corrupt and things like that. What do you do to circumvent that if you've got a Supreme Court like that to neutralize the amount of power they have?
Riot.
What do you do?
But other than riot, which won't help because they're better. They're better with weapons than we are. That's the problem. Oh, we're gonna get tough. No, you aren't. No, you aren't. The last thing, because that's what they want. They want the mayhem. That's their game, so that they can shut everything down.
And I have another lawyer friend who also fronts a band called the Darts that we put out, and she sent me something here. And this is constitutional. Oh, I think this is more of hoping to finally get a spine and impeach Kavanaugh at long last for lying 3 times under oath and raping people. Article 3, federal judges, as opposed to judges of some courts with special jurisdiction, serve during good behavior. Because another thing that's long overdue, but you've got to do it constitutionally, unfortunately, is term limits for federal judges. Well, Clarence Thomas is still wrecking our lives. And if they put Amy Coney Barrett on, she's like 47 years old. And she's going to wreck things the rest of our natural lives.
Yeah, isn't she a mixed martial arts?
Judges who hold their seats. Well, it's often paraphrased as anointed for life. Judges hold their seats until they resign, die, or are removed from office, although the legal orthodoxy is that judges cannot be removed from office except by impeachment by the House of Representatives, followed by conviction by the Senate. Several legal scholars, including William Rehnquist, Sai Krishna Prakash, and Stephen D. Smith, have argued that the good behavior clause may, in theory, permit removal by way of a writ of, I may pronounce this wrong, secret facias, filed before a federal court.
There are children here. Be
impeachment.
There are children listening. Okay, there's something else.
I'll clutch at any straw I can.
Okay, here's a trivia question. Do you remember Pete Buttigieg?
Oh, yeah.
He brought up the point that there, of course, as Franklin Roosevelt noted, there's nothing about who serves on the Supreme Court or acts on the Supreme Court, how many judges. So
I know that.
Roosevelt just said he just appointed 6 extra judges to 15. And of course, the Congress at that time, the Southern Cracker Democrats, the Dixiecrats, stopped him from packing the court. But Buttigieg
they saw it as too open a power grab for its own good, which is going to happen again because some people are already calling. Some people are already calling to add 2, but that just means it's 6-5 in favor of the neo-Nazi Christian supremacists. You're going to have to put on 4.
Well, there's another way.
I don't know whether we're going to be able to get that to fly.
Well, there's another way to do it. Buttigieg said if he were president, he would rotate the Supreme Court. See, because the only reason that there's 9 judges is that there's 9 circuits. I mean, literally circuits were like, the judges would go around on horseback. And they needed a Supreme Court judge that they could assign to each circuit, put him on a horse, and they would ride out to the circuit. Okay, 9 circuits. So he said, well, you just put him on a horse, you can rotate the judges from the appeal court into the Supreme Court. Because all the Supreme Court is the top court of the appeals courts. So I know it's a little fancy, but Buttigieg is correct. There's no reason why.
We have more than 9 circuits now, do we not?
What?
We have more than 9 circuits now, do we not?
Nope.
I thought we did.
I could be wrong, but I don't like.
I thought I'd read recently about some decision by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, I don't know.
Circuit. Well, okay. Call me Mister. What he said is you can switch around I'm telling you how the circuits were created. There were 9 judges.
Right.
Circuits. Okay, this is history, but I know that Americans aren't supposed to ever mention history. Nothing happened before last.
History fascinates me. I mean,
right. So no, but what I'm saying is, let's look at history. So it's about 9 circuits where 9 judges would ride out. Now, the point is, Buttigieg says, well, you can rotate these guys, put a different guy on the horse that goes back to Washington, and so he's correct. But here's the problem: we have to just take the control, and we still have the remnants of democracy, and we can use it. They can't steal all the votes all the time. I'm going to say it again and again. That's why you got to keep voting, because you don't want to be a putz, as King.
And besides voting, which you've gone into well, what else?
Everything else, okay? Yeah, voting isn't everything. People say, well, what's the point of voting? Well, what's the point of brushing your teeth or wiping your butt? I mean, you can just change your underwear more often, right? But the answer is, it doesn't save the world to wipe your butt. It doesn't even save your clothes all the time to wipe your butt. What I'm saying is that voting isn't everything. But if you don't do it, you're going to be pretty stinky.
Okay, what other remnants of democracy and whatnot have we got and we can use?
Right, okay. So we march, we vote, we back organizations that are going to take the fights to the court. We back independent journalism. You can donate to the Palace Investigative Fund.org.
Rose again.
Hear that again?
And now there you are.
So there you go. Okay. PalaceInvestigativeFund.org. Tax-deductible donations accepted, and you get freebie gifts, including books illustrated by Winston Smith. Right? You can't beat that. You can't beat that. Now, here's the thing. So there's a lot of things we can do, including and resisting too. When they say, hey, we got an idea. Why don't you go to Iraq? The answer should be, no, thank you. Okay, that's pretty simple. I mean, no thank you is a really powerful phrase when they say, go to Iraq and kill some people, before I say, hey, I'm, busy. No thanks. Okay, so we resist. And when the LAPD, I have a photo camera of the LAPD going up 40 up because they had a 40 caliber bullet with a rubber shield. 1 out of 20 people that get hit with those dies. 1 out of 5 is permanently injured. And they're pointing at my 18-year-old goddaughter. Why? Well, she's African, not African American, African. And but they didn't know the difference. They didn't realize that she was actually a foreign student, so they were going to shoot her. Just she had that black skin thing going, And but so what you can do is resist. Resistance is very powerful. Resist, write, scream, holler, argue, talk to people, convince them. Usual.
In other words, the same thing I say with don't hate the media, become the media, which in the digital age doesn't mean blogging to an echo chamber of people who already agree with you, but going eye to eye, one-on-one with people you're close to. And if they start spouting out, Chinese, COVID is a Chinese plot, things like that, you got to sit down and talk to them. And it may be very painful. Turn your stomach, what comes out of your mouth. They may call you all kinds of names, unprintable, even in our newspapers. But some of them may also wake up 3 days, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years later. Hey, wait a minute, that's true. Somebody's got to plant the seeds, because Rachel Maddow and Bernie Sanders aren't going to do it. So here's a question to end this thing. You and I passed along the shop talk back and forth about the interstate cross-check program and your film before the 2016 election that focused on it, and what you did since, although I was amazed there was no Rolling Stone follow-up article. I don't know what happened with that, but
AARP Rock and Roll Magazine?
Exactly. Can you explain to people out there who don't know what interstate cross-check program was? Tell the story.
Okay, Chris Kobach of Kansas, and can't remember that name, think KKK. He was the Secretary of State of Kansas. That's the guy in charge of voting. But more important, he was Trump's vote thief in chief, and he came up with a program where he took all of the voting rolls of 30 states, mushed them together, and said, we're going to stop all the double voters. And NBC and ABC, not just Fox, but all the big networks wrote these articles praising the system. You're going to use computers to find out these terrible people voting twice. Now, understand, I know 4 people have been, I don't know them personally. I mean, I've looked up 4 people convicted of voting, double voting in 2 states, same election, in 10 years out of several billion ballots cast. So you don't do it because you go to jail for 5 years. But okay, hey, who's counting? So how many people are suspected of voting twice? 7.2 million. That's where we got back that whole issue of all these Jose Garcias being removed from the voter rolls. Literally 568 James Browns removed from the voter rolls in 1 state, in Georgia. They took common names. And by the way, 85 of the 100 most common last names in America, say the census, are minority names. That is Rodriguez, Garcia, Black, Johnson, Kim, Chung, Ho, etc. Now.
Yeah, well, the example I think you used in the movie was the 75% of the people named Washington are African Americans. So anybody named Washington, including George Washington the 27th, who descended from the slave plantation owner father and hemp grower father of our country, couldn't vote either. That way. The claim was they were checking social security numbers and middle names, and I think the movie and the book proved pretty definitively that they didn't do that at all and intentionally did the opposite.
But here's the kicker.
As we talked about earlier, getting Trump in was bad enough, but it tipped the Senate back into the open KKK hood with the eyes sewn shut that Mitch McConnell wields and stuff, and got him a whole new, belly full of some of the Tea Party crackpots, most openly lunatic, who was supposed to lose, got back in. when nobody thought they would. And all the black people, nobody showed up in North Carolina for Hillary. They actually did.
Yes, they weren't allowed
The votes got
That's
tossed.
the thing I don't understand when, I mean, I like, Michelle Obama said, black people let her husband down by not voting and saving his legacy. No, they didn't, Michelle. You weren't with me in Dayton. You weren't with me in Georgia. You weren't with me in North Carolina when black people tried to vote, but were blocked because they said, wait, your name is John Johnson? Your name is Jesse Jackson? There's a Jesse Jackson who voted in Chicago. Well, but he doesn't have my same middle name. That's my dad. I'm Junior. No, sorry, buddy. You're out. You can't vote. Actually, the truth is Santita Jackson was blocked from voting, and his daughter. And so what happened is, but here's the good news and the bad news. The good news is that it was defeated. That is, people, once we exposed it, the system was shut down. It was shut down. Chris Kobach was running for governor. By the way, he lost his primary, but then he disqualified 900 votes of his opponent and named himself the winner. I can't make that up. But the Republicans,
I didn't know that.
He made one mistake. He threw out 900 Republican votes in the primary. The Republicans got so upset. People don't realize he lost the general election to a Democrat in Kansas because the Republicans ended up voting massively for a third-party candidate because they were by Mr.
Is Kobach the nominee for Senate this time?
He's he ran then for Senate and he lost. Again, the same thing, because some of the Republicans, especially in Kansas, I got to tell you, I was there, and a lot of people objected to his vote-thieving ways, even Republicans who said, we'd rather win by convincing people to vote for us, not just punching them in the face and taking away their ballot.
Right.
And so
we have not heard the last of Chris Kobach.
Yeah, no.
He's like the Wunderkind isn't he Oxford educated, even though he's supposed to be this Kansas bumpkin, which he's not. Yeah. He's kind of like Karl Rove times 100, which is a very dangerous species of evil. So we haven't heard the last of him.
Not at all. In fact, people were laughing because he brought a case requiring that you show you're a citizen, prove you're a citizen in order to vote. That may sound reasonable, except we don't have citizenship cards like Red China, and we don't have chips in our brain yet that identify us as proper citizens. But, the judge said he was so obnoxious in the courtroom, she ordered him he not only lost the case, but the federal judge ordered him to go back to law school for 10 hours so he'd learn something about how to behave in court. She literally ordered him to go back to law school.
And that was Kobach?
And people were laughing. He's so stupid. He's not stupid. He was stupid as a fox. He went to oxford, Harvard, and Yale. Okay? This guy knows the law. He was a law professor.
Right.
The problem is he's a law-breaking professor. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was pleasing the boss. He was pleasing Agent Orange and setting himself up for a nice little position with Agent
Except that Crosscheck went in and got before Trump ever announced he was running.
That's right.
It was just for the Republican nominee and to preserve the Tea Party crackpots. They weren't planning on Trump-a-muck, but embraced him once they realized how popular he already was. It's like, my God, we don't have to run all these ads getting people to like Jeb Bush or Scott Walker or Governor Sick in Ohio. No, this guy already has millions of fans. Not just fans, but a cult following. We don't care how crazy he is. Let him be the front man in the circus, and we can loot the store like we never thought humanly possible.
Did you know that Chris Kobach was the first elected official in the United States to endorse Donald Trump? That's not by accident.
Even before Jeff Sessions?
Even before, I'll grab my ankles. Here's the Vaseline Sessions. Okay, get that out of your head.
Cheney endorsed him really early on.
I can't think about that anymore. All right, listen, Jello.
Well, we kind of have to.
Wrap this sucker up.
One last thing about Crosscheck. So it helps steal the election for Trump and all these crackpot senators, which then means we get the wrong Supreme Court. Where's Bernie Sanders? Where's Elizabeth Warren? And for that matter, after spending 12 or 112 years trying to make herself president, where's Hillary Clinton? They all had to know that this happened and had to know about Crosscheck in advance. Why nothing about it?
You're asking me why Democrats don't stand up. The same reason jellyfish don't. They don't have vertebrates. They don't have spines. But I have to tell you, one thing about Warren and Sanders and Clinton. There's no question. Well, I spoke to Bernie Sanders about crosscheck, and so because Jesse Jackson asked Bernie Sanders to meet with us in Chicago and sit down and say, what are you going to do about crosscheck? And Sanders did want to take it on. You can't take that away from Bernie. He sat down with me and Reverend Jackson, and he's got it. And he was, he was reading my books, and he's got it. I'm going to be very honest. Elizabeth Warren.
And this was before or after the actual election in 2016?
This is before the 16 election. Liz Warren was actually at the time the front runner. And frankly, I mean, I talked to Liz, but she was literally, can I tell you, I shouldn't probably say this, but she was literally outside the door. When we're talking with, Jesse and I were talking with Bernie, Elizabeth Warren's outside. I said, come on in. You want to join us, Senator? It's like, no. Oh, I got a plane to catch. Or a cake to catch.
Here, right?
I got a bat to catch. I gotta go. And
this discussion was 2016 or 2020.
This was 2016.
Okay, because she wasn't running.
No, it was excuse me. It was 2019.
Okay.
And she was the front runner. If you're
right. Yeah, I think corporate McNews deliberately forgot to cover her around September 2019 and spent all their time bitching about Bernie when Warren was the stronger candidate who may well have been a better president functioning in that office, but they kind of had to make sure she'd go away, then cartoonify all the progressives with Bernie Sanders and whomp them. And I don't know whether they really were intending to run Biden or not. They tried dangling all these other ones and nobody liked them and stuff. So then finally, okay, no more Klobuchar, no more Mayor Pete, no more none of this, no more Kamala. You all got to endorse all that coelacanth, Joe Biden, now and get back to business and all. But back to crosscheck for a second.
Yeah,
I've been bitching and moaning about this ever since you put the blowtorch up my ass before it all came true in 2016, telling people in different states, find out if your state is a crosscheck state and get them to pull out. Colorado was a crosscheck state, and I know people are kind of up in the political system there, and I was jumping up and down. Oh, yeah, prove it, Jello. We know what you are and stuff. There was a Tea Party Secretary of State named Scott Gessler who got it in, and now there's a Democrat in there instead, but you're telling me I shouldn't even be whining at all anymore because crosscheck is gone.
Well, Kansas killed it off because the Republicans of Kansas wanted to get out the Kobach stain, the KKK. They got to get him out because they were going to get wiped out in their own state. Because what happened was people really began to catch this guy and hate him. You know, my film, Best Democracy Money Can Buy, the League of Women Voters played it, and the ACLU played it 60 times during the campaign. Now, I'm nonpartisan. My film is nonpartisan. It's about vote thieving. But, you know, some people said, you know, that had a lot to do with Kobach losing. And so but I don't take part in partisan race stuff, but you're welcome.
But that also, what you told me in a text was the reason it collapsed was not because of Kobach losing publicly, but the ACLU court battle in Kansas.
Yes, so we that added to it. They just, because it was ready to go over. And,
but was that decision in a high enough level of federal court? It was a nationwide decision, or just in Kansas?
No, but it was a smart move because since these hit lists, these kind of racist hit lists were being created by Kobach in Kansas, and so by the state of Kansas. They were actually being generated by some computer operation in Alabama, but it was coming through Kansas. And so once Kansas killed it, it's temporarily dead. But then, see, they found new gimmicks. So they said, okay, we'll go to something else. They have other ways of removing voters. But here's a new danger. Mike Pence apparently is restarting a form of crosscheck based in Indiana. I'm very concerned that Kobach is going to create this private organization. Look, there's also an organization.
We know he and Pence are close.
Yeah. And, you know, so who wears the Pence in that family? But
yeah, I mean, it was the two of them who were supposed to investigate all the vote fraud that
that's
meant
right.
Hillary didn't win the popular vote, and I never knew why that thing was disbanded so
Well,
fast.
it was disbanded because Kobach, despite Oxford, Yale, and Harvard law schools, decided that he could skirt the law and have secret meetings. Well, guess what? At least on paper, we are a government of, by, and for the people, and you can't have secret government meetings about removing voters. So people like bad boys like me issued Freedom of Information requests and other types of legal threats that you got to open up your meetings. You can't have little secret meetings. I don't care what you and Pence do in the dark. Just don't do it with my ballot, okay? And
yeah.
And so it was either turn over their internal records, which would be a little bit more than embarrassing, or shut it down. And then see, Kobach's idea was not to permanently shut it down, but actually to shift its function into Homeland Security. And so and now you can say, oh, you can't talk to us about our investigations. It's part of its national security matter. Right. So that was
what was the federal position that Kobach was supposed to get, but he made so many demands they told him to go fly a kite. It wasn't Homeland Security, it was something else.
Well, he wanted to be in charge of immigration, of course. And then
well, okay, assume it was ICE. The written demands he sent in was he gets his own private jet, among other things, and a commitment from Trump that he is running all of Homeland Security within 6 months.
Yeah.
Then even the Trumpsies couldn't stand him anymore. Even Jared Kushner, the baby Rasputin, even he saw through that one.
I know. I think that Kobach had a worry that MBS was going to show up with his little chainsaw in his diplomatic.
Oh no, but he'd do that as a favor to Kobach if it was a favor for Jared.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so this is our story. So, if after all you still don't want to vote, then don't talk to me. Okay, just shut the screen off. You don't get taking back all our jokes. If you got a single laugh out of this, now you're going to say you're not going to vote. How dare you? You've stolen all our best jokes. You've stolen all our good information. And now you're just going to run off and just throw it away? No, thank you. How dare you? So I want everyone right now, check your registration. There's many places. If you're in Georgia or Wisconsin, go to my site. Go to gregpalast.com and go to savemyvote2020.org. And if that isn't good enough for you,
go to Coach.
Go to vote.org. Put in your email. They'll tell you whether you're still registered. In most states, you got to register right away by October 5. And in some states, you can register on the day. California and Wisconsin, and I'm telling everyone, bring an ID, bring proof of address, and if you're a voter of color, bring 2 lawyers.
Well, here's another question. With all the people turned away, in Texas, Florida, and the rest, because they've monkeyed with the ID laws, make them super hard, and making sure the IDs that they want are the ones that people of color, especially older ones, are unlikely to have. Why hasn't there been more action by civil rights organizations to get those people the acceptable IDs? Just outflank them that way. Where's the black church? Where's Jesse Jackson?
Well, they are. I will say that the civil rights organizations, ACLU, Operation Rainbow Push, all these are acting. Well, the party that's missing in this is, and I've actually filed a missing persons report for the Democratic Party because Chuck Schumer's been out on the street panhandling. You can't turn on any Vimeo now without that weird Skype shot of him with the lights. So he looks
and his glasses are down to here all the time.
You are getting sleepy, and you are sending a check to the Democrats.
Yes, just like those old Inner Sanctum horror movies.
Right? Yeah,
even
it's like a guy like selling
murder.
a Barca lounger at 4 a.m. when you're eating potato chips because you have anxiety about taking the SAT in 2 hours. So that weird Chuck Schumer stuff. But what they're not dealing with is the vote. And they're not dealing with the fact that there's going to have to be, they're just telling people, mail in your ballot and just like mail in ballot bingo. Good luck. So all I'm telling you is that's what's missing is the Democratic Party. And they go and laud, give a bunch of money to Stacey Abrams, but they haven't done anything about protecting the vote. And when I say they haven't done anything, I don't want to say they haven't done anything. I want to say they haven't done anything. And neither is the media on this. Okay, sorry, boys.
No.
You know, sorry, boys. You've had your hands in your pockets counting the shekels, your 30 pieces of silver, you know, just wait till you meet your editor, the great editor.
Right, of course. Of course. I mean, it's no accident. I've tracked this for almost as long as you have. Why all these, like the punditoid shows and everything else, they'll have certain people on, but they'd much rather have, say, Michael Steele, an African-American Republican who doesn't like Trump, on, than have a Jesse Jackson on, or even a Chuck D, or an Ice-T, or the people from Run the Jewels, or any of that. Or Reverend Barber, anything. They don't have that. It's like, okay, we need another hostoid here on this great liberal savior MSNBC. How about an ex-speechwriter for George W. Bush and call it Deadline White House? Anything to keep people like us out of those slots, or more importantly, to keep you out.
Well, the important thing, the rulers don't intend to share the rule. And
of course.
Remember, there's only one party in the end, Hezbollah Shekel, the party of the cash. So
I call it.
I'm not. By the way, I'm not one of these people who say that there's no difference between the parties, because that's criminally stupid. That just isn't true. But that doesn't.
Well, no, the difference is the Republicans stand for greed, corruption, bigotry, war, and pollution, while the upper echelon corporate Democrats stand for pretending to feel guilty about greed, corruption, bigotry, war, and pollution. And that's the difference between the two.
I have to write that down. Okay.
It's in one of my songs. It's in the song called The Brown Lipstick Parade on the last Guantanamo School of Medicine album people can get right now, which is called White People and the Damage Done. I guess what I should have done is put my own albums behind me, like people always do with their books and stuff. Right. And you can get that one right now, which applies a lot to this day and age. It was kind of an anti-austerity concept album, complete with closing with the song Shockupy, in tribute to the Occupy movement, which was Obama owed his second term to Occupy, and that prank camera phone shot of Romney talking about the 47%. That tipped that whole election. That election was not a pro-Obama vote. It was an anti-Romney vote, because he scared the shit out of people. And Occupy was so full on, even corporate cartoon McNews had to admit that inequality was a problem. It wasn't like, oh, stronger America, who's nicer to Israel and stuff like that. They got inequality front and center, and finally Mittens was toast. It was Occupy who gave Obama his second term.
And he's been grateful ever since.
Oh yeah, obviously. All right. I got to run. I think you do too. So okay. Thank you so much. And good luck getting people to vote. And the book
I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're not watching this on gregpalast.com, you better get there.
Yeah, well, you also have to watch it on AlternativeTentacles.com. It's one of our bATcasts. We're both doing this one and sending it out, right?
That's right. And Jello, thank you for producing my album, Weapon of Mass Instruction. It still has something to say, because see, the clowns may change their names, but they don't change their balloon shoes that stomp you.
Exactly.
Okay, so
all right. Yeah, and all them clowns are Gacy's at heart.
Gotcha.
All right, take care. Away I go.